All right, let's dive into one of the most game-changing personal finance books out there, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The whole thing is built around the author Robert Kiyosaki and the two very different father figures he had growing up. One was his actual dad, super educated, but always struggling with money. That was his poor dad. And the other was his best friend's dad, who dropped out of school but went on to become a millionaire, his rich dad. The advice he got from them was night and day, and it's those lessons that we're going to break down. And look, this wasn't just some small disagreement over how to save a few bucks. This was a total clash of worldviews. Every single piece of advice from his poor dad was about playing it safe, finding security. But every lesson from his rich dad, that was all about creating freedom and taking control. I mean, just look at this. Poor dad's advice is what most of us hear: climb that corporate ladder. Rich dad's advice? Forget climbing the ladder. Own the ladder. It's the classic difference, right? Are you working for the system, or are you building a system that works for you? And this difference in thinking, it went deep. I mean, all the way down to their core beliefs about money itself. Poor dad always said the love of money is the root of all evil. But rich dad, he flips it completely. He argued that the lack of money is the real evil. One saw money as this corrupting force, while the other just saw it for what it is, a tool, a form of power. That one little shift in perspective changes absolutely everything. You know, Rich Dad had this great way of putting it. He said your brain is like a muscle. When you say, I can't afford it, you're basically telling that muscle to just give up. It shuts down all creative thought. But when you ask a question, how can I afford it? Well, that's like a workout for your brain. It forces you to get creative, to find solutions, and to see opportunities that you would have otherwise missed. So, you can probably see where this is going, right? That poor dad way of thinking, the one that millions of people follow, it leads you straight into what Rich Dad famously called the rat race. You know, that endless hamster wheel where you're running faster and faster, but you're not actually getting anywhere. And here's the thing. This trap isn't really about the numbers on a spreadsheet. No, it's all about two really powerful human emotions, fear and desire. First, there's the fear. The fear of not having enough money, of not being able to pay your bills. That's what gets you up in the morning and off to a job. But then you get that paycheck, and another emotion kicks in: desire. The desire for all the nice stuff that money can buy. Okay, so let's break down how this cycle actually works, because it's a vicious one. Step 1, that fear of being broke pushes you to get a job. Step 2, the paycheck hits your account and boom, desire kicks in. You start thinking about a new car, a bigger house, a vacation. Step 3, that desire leads to spending, usually on things that create even more bills. Step 4, now you have to work even harder to pay for everything, and the whole cycle just starts over again. Get up, go to work, pay bills, repeat. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that a job for most people is just a band-aid. It's a short-term fix for a much bigger long-term problem. Yeah, the paycheck makes the fear go away for a little while, but it's also what fuels the desire that keeps you trapped. It's kind of like taking a painkiller for a broken bone instead of actually setting it and letting it heal. Okay, so if the job is just part of the trap, how in the world do you get out? Well, according to Rich Dad, it all boils down to one golden rule. And honestly, it's so simple, it's almost shocking, but it's what separates the wealthy from everyone else. First up, you absolutely have to know what an asset is. And Rich Dad's definition is just brilliant in its simplicity. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket. That's it. It generates income for you whether you're actively working or not. And of course, the flip side of that is a liability. Super simple. Anything that takes money out of your pocket, it costs you money. Understanding this fundamental difference is like step 1 of financial literacy. So this chart right here, it shows you everything. It's the story of two different cash flow patterns. On one side, you've got the poor and middle class. Their income comes from a job, and it flows right back out to pay for expenses and liabilities. Their liability column just keeps getting bigger. But then you look at the other side, the rich. Their income flows from their assets. And what do they do with that money? They buy more assets. It creates this amazing positive feedback loop where their wealth just keeps growing. And this right here is the single biggest mistake people make. It's the ultimate trap. People spend their whole lives buying liabilities that they've been told are assets: a fancy new car, a boat, and yeah, even the house you live in. Now that's a controversial one, but if it's taking money out of your pocket every month for a mortgage, taxes, insurance, and repairs, Kiyosaki says it's a liability, not an asset. And it's what keeps that hamster wheel spinning. Right, so knowing the difference is one thing, right? But putting it into action, that's a whole other ballgame. And this leads us to Rich Dad's next big lesson, which sounds simple, but is actually pretty radical. Mind your own business. It sounds obvious, but think about it. Most of us spend our entire lives minding someone else's business. We totally confuse our profession with our business. Your profession is what you do from 9 to 5. You could be a baker, a programmer, a manager. But that's not your business. So what is your business? Well, it's your asset column. That's it. Your business is the focused, deliberate act of building that column. The whole game is to keep your day job, that's your profession, but you use that paycheck as seed money to buy things that make you more money. Things like these, real assets that work for you. And man, does this change how you think about buying nice things. See, most people buy luxuries first, usually on credit, to look rich. But the wealthy, they do it completely backward. They buy luxuries last. They wait until their asset column is generating enough cash flow on its own, and then they let their assets buy the luxury. It's a huge difference. Their assets are paying for the yacht, not their 9-to-5 job. Okay, so once you're focused on building up that asset column, you get to unlock what Rich Dad called the biggest secret of the rich. This is how they really accelerate the whole process and protect their wealth. This all comes down to how money flows, especially when it comes to taxes. Look, for an employee, it's a straight line. You earn money, the government takes its cut right away, and then you spend what's left. But for a corporation, the game is totally different. A corporation earns money, then it spends everything it possibly can on business expenses, and only then does it pay taxes on whatever little bit is left over. It's a massive advantage. Now, to be super clear, this isn't about anything illegal or shady. This is just about financial intelligence. It's about knowing the rules of the game and using them to your advantage, legally. By using a corporate structure, you can protect your assets and dramatically reduce your single biggest expense, taxes, which means you have way more money to pour back into your asset column. So when you boil it all down, what's this really about? It's about flipping the power dynamic. It's a challenge to stop being a slave to money and instead become its master. To stop letting fear and desire run your life and instead use your financial knowledge to build a life of real freedom. So the question isn't just about how much money you have. The real question is, are you building a life where you're in control, or are you just running in someone else's race?